just like this. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. If you've ever considered writing a book, we're going to take you through that process. And we've talked with this gentleman before about that process with his publishing company, NFB Publishing, out of Buffalo, New York. We've done fiction, nonfiction, historical fiction. This is the first time, if I remember correctly, talking with somebody who call it a self-help book, coaching people on how to achieve a goal. We're going to dig into that today. Mark Pogodzinski is the wonderful publisher that takes you from the beginning right to the end. I'm talking about everything included in between there. And he's back with us. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing very well. Very well. Who do we have with us today? Who's joining us?
Today we have Mr. Patrick Hall, who wrote a book called Staying Humble about what it takes to build a successful team, whether it's sports, business, what goes into it, what you need to do. And I think one of my favorite parts of the book was how to be an effective leader, which I think a lot of people could use a little bit more training in.
For sure. Patrick, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve. Thanks for Mark again for setting this up.
So lots to talk about today. When we talk about being an effective leader, and what we're going to get to the book very deeply in a moment, but I'm kind of curious. When we talk about the word leader, would you say that we're all leaders in some way because we're essentially leading ourselves?
Yeah, I think everybody is absolutely leading yourself, and you're trying to improve yourself on a daily basis. At least I hope you are. But you've got to be able to lead yourself before you can lead others at the same time. So, kind of my whole journey is about kind of starting, I'm sure we'll get into the book, but starting early on, getting a taste of the leadership side of things when I was younger. And my whole journey is about humbling myself because I had to get to know myself a little bit more and fail along the way so I can be an effective leader. An effective leader is someone who has influence over others and, can make a positive impact in other people's lives so that they can do better as well.
To be an effective leader, do you always have to remain humble?
I do not think so. I think I think you can be effective in many different ways, but I don't necessarily think you have to be humble. I think by being humble, you can be a better leader. You can impact more people, but it all depends. Everyone is led differently. Everyone learns differently. And so I don't think you have to be completely have the humility to be effective, but I definitely think that it helps, and it helped me. And it's helped my teams and those that I've grown over the years.
Tell me the word humble in your life. Where did it present itself? Where does it present itself? Where was call it a transformation based on that word? Yeah,
I think the transformation came, and I talk about this, I call it the roots of leadership. It's kind of the first chapter that, it's a very awkward piece because I'm just talking about myself for the whole first chapter. And that's not very humble to be talking about yourself for the whole time. But because I don't have a CEO title, I'm not the general of an army, I'm not an admiral, I don't have this big title ever behind me. So I felt like I need to at least tell my journey of how I got to be in the leadership roles that I did. And quite frankly, I grew up in St. Joe, Michigan, where everything was kind of handed to me. I didn't ever work. I worked out and I kind of developed my own work ethic. But I didn't ever really fail a lot. And I know that's kind of a sad thing to say. And I went to the United States Military Academy. I did well there. Was able to play football, which also was a great thing. Had a lot of great friends. Still to this day, they're there. And spent a really good time in the Army, getting a lot of great opportunities. And then as soon as I got into the business world is where I started to experience some of that failure. And it doesn't feel good, but I keep a little a little sign by my desk that says I failed my way to success. And once I started failing is where I started to see a lot of my growth actually go a lot better. But it took a little bit of that humble pie. Several times I had to get in front of my teams and say, hey, I guess I didn't know everything. This is on me. And I started to kind of take that humble approach. And then I tied it to Jocko Willink, who's got the 100% ownership. He's got extreme ownership. So I kind of took that piece and said, hey, how do I get 100% ownership to my teams? And really the only way to do that is to recognize that part of building a team is failing, and you fail your way up. And I know there's lots of leadership gurus that talk about failing up in a good way.
This resonates very much with me, and I'm sure many others. And I was at a point where I left a big job after decades, and I started very young, and it was just time to go. It was a mutual departure. And I remember being on the phone with somebody who is very insightful, and I'm saying, well, what am I going to do now? I'm not here anymore. That was my identity. And I had some severance, but I got a kid on the way. Like, I can't believe this is what's going on right now. Like, it hit me. And he said to me, when you're at your lowest point, that's when you're most humble. And I will never forget those words, because it was kind of a low point. And now I was open to hearing things, receiving things that maybe I might not have seen before that. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, until you fail and really fail, not like these small failures. When you fail, and, chapter 10 in my book, it literally is just defined as failure. And I don't talk about all my failures, but I highlight a lot of them. Up until that point, you think you got it figured out. I mean, I was a 23-year-old kid leading a command. I was a company commander in the military. I had just gotten out of flight school, and I was leading 100 soldiers who had just gotten back from Afghanistan. Every single person had more experience than I did. And I dove in feet first. And one of the things I did is I kind of humbled myself and said, okay, I don't have the experience. Let me lean on the people around me who are more experienced, but also older and could help me. But I still had that like invincible mindset that a 23-year-old might have.
Sure.
But I totally get where you got to hit some type of rock bottom and you say, okay, I got to lean on others. Like, I don't have all the answers. And by the way, like, you hear us all the time, like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Like, that started to become a thing. I'm like, well, if it's just my mind, if it's just my ideas, like, we're in really big trouble because there's a lot of smart people out there. And a lot of people have different skill sets in different areas of the business that you might be able to leverage. You have, I think Patrick Lencioni talks about the working genius, where everybody's got different capacities. Some are good creative thinkers. Some are just doers. Some people are just going to ask a bunch of questions and they're not going to actually get anything done. They're just going to ask a bunch of really good questions. But you need all that within your team. And again, if you're not a humble individual, you're going to think that you can do everything, and you're going to miss out on potential growth. You're going to of yourself, potential growth of your company. So it definitely resonates with me with what you're saying.
I heard this the other day. Sir Isaac Newton has said that what we know is a drop, what we don't know is an ocean. So to your point, you don't know everything. That's why we're not publishers. He is. Mark, when you first got this book from Patrick, what was your initial vibe?
I like the title. I thought the title was excellent, especially with leadership. And I think the big thing that made an impact on me, a true leader can admit when they're wrong, and a true leader can understand that they have growth. They have a journey that they have to take also, and that they're not complete. And with Patrick coming from the military, where it is a hierarchy, to go from that very regimented system into the business world where everyone has an opinion, everyone has value, and you can't simply dictate what you want. And to learn that lesson, I think, is essential for a great leader. And I think his book did a really fantastic way of articulating that in a very approachable manner. Like, the book comes across as someone speaking to you, someone who's honest, someone who says, you know what, I was in this scenario, it worked here, but then I shifted and I had to relearn, as he said, who he was, and then the leadership came after that. So I thought that was a very important part of his book.
We've talked about the book writing process, editing, everything involved in that with fiction, with nonfiction. This is different in terms of self-help. Was it different for you, or is it different for you when you work with somebody like Patrick on a book like this?
Well, I think when you read the book, you understand that it is put together incredibly well. Like, it has a flow, it has a start here, and then as he says, chapter 1's about the background. Chapter 10, we get to the like the nuts and bolts of actual leadership and building a team. So I think he can probably speak to that, like how he decided to put the book together.
Yeah, Steve, it's really, when I was a part of some of my teams, a lot of my leaders would be like, "Hey, Patrick, you should write a book on like this. You have a very unique approach," which to me was I felt leadership 101. I'm like, well, this is the stuff that I learned in the military. I learned it at the academy. And so I actually transitioned careers from like an operations into more marketing, and I just started kind of outlining it. And I thought it was just a matter of just like writing it. Like, I think I'm writing it from a perspective of, there's a lot of books that I've read from these massive, great leaders, and I learned a ton, but I had to use all of these books to kind of get my own experience. And I realized that most of them were like theoretical. There wasn't a lot of books that were out there where it gave me examples of things that I could try. You know, none of the stuff that I use is original. It's all borrowed from a John Maxwell or a Patrick Lencioni or a Jocko or a Patton or a Abraham Lincoln. Like, none of the stuff that I have is my own, but how you leverage it and to bring in real life scenarios, I think that's what I didn't see a lot of. I'm like, I think I can leverage this a lot. So once I started getting into it, I started bringing some of my old team members in. I'm like, hey, do you remember when we did this? How did it feel from your perspective? They started to tell me about that. And then I had a couple people reading like, hey, this has got some legs. And the goal obviously was never to make a ton of money or do anything. I just wanted to help. If I helped one person and I documented a portion for my kids and my grandkids, then I consider it a success. Well, I started, I got done, and it was right around COVID time period. And a friend of mine from my MBA program had just got done writing a book. And I went to him like, hey, how did you, okay, how do I get an editor? He goes, oh, so we went through this whole editing process, and I was like, it was mind boggling. I thought I was done. And next thing you know, like another 8-9 months of just editing. And then we got done editing, and then I had my wife look at it, and she's like, she had like 500 more edits. I'm like, okay. So we get it done, and I go back to the editor. I go, okay, so how do we do this? Well, you got to publish it. I'm like, okay, can you publish it? And she's like, no, I'm not a publisher. I'm like, oh, well, what does that mean? And so I went back to my friend and actually looked up Mark. And so I linked up with Mark. I wrote him. He's like, yeah, we do this, this, and this. And this is what we're looking for. And so Mark and I get going back and forth another, I think, 6 months or so. And he's going back. I'm like, well, can you change this? So we do all that. And then he goes, hey, do you have a cover page? I go, yeah. I sent him like some pictures. And he goes, is that what you want? I'm like, no, I want you to like, can you make it pretty and doctor it up? And he's like, well, I'm not an artist. I'm like, oh my goodness. There's so much more to this that I didn't even realize. So I go online and I find this artist that's in like a completely different country, completely different time zone. And I eventually get it to Mark. And that was a difficult thing, just getting like the image of what's the right thing to put on this cover that can tell the story before you even get into it, that can grab the attention. So I have a lot of respect for people who have do this for a living in writing the books. But Mark was great about just kind of helping me out and pointing me in the right direction. And ultimately, we got it over the goal line. I was able to kind of get it out to some of my friends. And then I don't think I've told Mark this. I've now turned it into, I teach at one of our local colleges, and I'm able to turn the book into a class.
Wow.
It's not the main portion of it, but half the class is on customer service, and this other class is based off the book. And I'm able to continue to help people, learn some stuff that I just had to learn on my own, which was great. But the process is very, very interesting. I'm glad I got to go through it, but it was a lot more difficult than I thought.
Along the way, did you second guess. For example, cover's great. It's a man standing looking at a road that kind of goes like this and looks like clouds, mountain. I'm looking at it, from a distance here. But I totally get the feeling and the vibe. But did you second guess, like the image 1, 2, and 3, like maybe this one or maybe that one? And same thing with chapters. Would you, not that we overthink things, but you want to give the best of the best experience to the reader. Did you have challenges with that?
I definitely had a challenge with that. There was a book by Simon Sinek. I really liked the way that he laid out the book. And so I think I had written Mark, I'm like, hey, use this as an example. Like, I don't know what that font is, but I like that font. I like how each chapter was broken up this way. In the midst of it, there'd been a couple, I think some other author does it where they recap the chapter. I really like that. And that's the feedback I've gotten from a lot of people who have read the book is they like the recap at the end of every chapter. That it kind of gets the key call out. So if you weren't taking notes or if you wanted to take notes, you could just go to the end of each chapter to kind of get the gist of what was all said. But the artwork was the most difficult. I had this vision in my head of what it would look like without spending thousands of dollars to create this artwork. It ended up being like in the book, I talk about building a team's like a puzzle. And so I really wanted the look and feel to be about a puzzle. And the missing piece of the puzzle is you need a little humility. I know I said to be an effective leader, you don't need humility, but I think anytime you're leading people, and regardless of the type of, whether it's a marketing team, which I've got a chance to lead, whether it's an operations team, which I've been able to lead, whether it's a military team, it doesn't necessarily matter how you're able to influence and ask for help and know that you don't have that in itself is a humble approach. So I wanted to make sure that you can't get to the top of the mountain alone. So that's why there's a team at the top of that mountain and you're at the bottom and kind of looking up. And that's kind of where the vision was, but like color and font and all that, like I definitely went back and forth and I'm glad I was able to kind of get it where it needed to be.
It was worth the wait and the work because you feel it and you see those people.
It was great
in the left side, of the background. Patrick, what do you think is your favorite chapter? Is there one, or is this like your kids? You love everyone.
No, I didn't think that'd be a good one. I think the failure one, I really take, so one, when I put a goal out there of how many books I thought Mark and I could sell, it was very low. And within the first month, it exceeded that. So I was like, okay, successful. Like it did its part. But some of my friends had read it and other people, I've got lots of stories of people from different parts of the world that are like, I was on a plane and your book was there. Wow. And this is like a good friend of mine. I've got 4 or 5 stories that are like that. I'm like, really? That's crazy that would even happen, but it's happened multiple times. But the one that people really like the most is actually the development programs. How do you put in development programs? So it's development programs. So it's chapter 7. And then the other one is chapter 10, learning from my failures. A lot of times everyone wants to tout themselves. And I think that a lot of people have liked, hey, when you tell us about your failures, that makes it real. Like Mark was kind of saying, like, I don't have these big titles. I mean, I've done a lot, I've led a lot, I've made a lot of mistakes, but I'm trying to tell it from a perspective of being in it. Like you could insert yourself into the story as I'm speaking, and you can say, okay, I've been in that situation where everybody on the team, I'm on an island by myself and no one's believing what we're doing. They're not believing in the vision. Like, how do you get them back on track? How do you get them bought in? How do you get to 100% ownership? I've heard of this 4 stages of team development, that the Tuckman model, but like, what does that mean? How does that play out in real life? Does it take a day? Does it take a year? Football specifically, with all the stuff going on in college football right now with the NIL deals and all that, like it's really tough to build a team when you've got to go through the 4 stages of team development every year as a coach, and your team that you're trying to build it off of, they're leaving. Like that to me is like a really interesting dynamic going on just in today's society, that I think, powerhouse individuals like Nick Saban probably like, I can't do this. I was in it to develop people. I was in it to grow teams to get to that next level. He used to, Nick Saban used to say, hey, the team that won the national championship last year, like it's a different team. Like you don't just automatically win the national championship because we have some players. It's a completely new team. You got to get the buy-in again. And I think I think he made a comment. It's probably one of the reasons why he left is that's not the case anymore. It's tough to build that team. So I think those are my favorite chapters is you got to have development programs to keep things going, and you got to continue to learn from your failures.
Hey, Mark, on the editing process of this, it seems like it took a little bit longer than maybe usual. I'm not really sure. Tell us about that.
Well, like Patrick said, he wanted certain things done a certain way, and it was entertaining for me rather than just putting like a novel or a nonfiction book together with the chapter pages. So we had a little bit more graphics. We had like boxes, inserts. We had the summaries at the end of the chapters. So it was a little bit more dynamic feel. When you look at the book, it's not static on the page. There's all sorts of different things going. So that was fun for me from a design point of view. Like, all right, when they open the book, it's not just going to be paragraph after paragraph. We're going to have all these different things. And I think hopefully that adds to it. But again, like the heart of the book, I think, is the selling point. As he says, you can put yourself in those situations. The theories are there, and the theories are really heady, like how to build a team. But like when it gets down to it, and you have a group of 20 people in a room with all different wants and needs, and you're in charge of them, and what do you do? And I think the book is incredibly helpful with that concept. It takes the theory and puts it down into concrete practice.
Is that the sign of a great book, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, self-help, where you place yourself in the situation?
I think definitely, because when you read the book, you're like, that's a situation I've been a part of. I might not have been the leader, but when I looked up and saw the leader, I knew absolutely I had no faith in that person because they were doing this. So when you become a leader, those lessons from the book you can use in your own life.
So Patrick, what's your next book about?
Well, honestly, I left operations, went into marketing when I started to write the book, learned a lot of new things about that. And then I got another opportunity to come back into operations, leading a completely type of business. And I'm just reapplying. I had a lot of my team members that bought the book and they're like, hey, we're doing that right now. I'm like, yeah, like it's the process. This is what we're doing. Like we're going to start by building trust and credibility. That's one of the chapters. We're going to work through this. And so I think a lot of people have said, hey, why didn't you put more of your military experience into it? Because I know a lot of people love the military aspect of things. And I have like 4 or 5 journals that I wrote. I don't know why I wrote them, but I did on my 2 deployments. I have a lot of interesting stories from that, but I didn't put a lot of them in there because that can be such a focal point. And I really wanted it to be about, I learned all these things because of what the military provided and what the academy provided, and even my upbringing, what that provided. It all led to this one team that proved out all of my theories and everything around what a playbook can do and what standards and disciplines can do and what going through the 4 stages of team development is the right way and getting ownership. But there's been a lot of people, I really wish you'd have brought some military points to that. So I think if there was another book, bringing in some of the military stories, tying that all together, taking this almost to like, okay, it's a class now. Could it be maybe a consulting firm later on that kind of implements this? There's been a lot of that. My brother just got done starting his own consulting firm. It was based off of a process within marketing that he developed. And I kind of like that idea of trying to kind of, again, it's all about how do I help others to break through some of this, these theories that are really great and apply it to real life so that people can learn from it and grow and go execute it for themselves. I think that's what Jocko, quite frankly, is doing a really good job of. He's got a lot of these great books that are easy to read, that's got the cool aspect of the military that people respect and they like to hear those stories. But he's also got a great podcast that he's telling stories and bringing people on. And that's kind of flourished as well. I definitely don't think I'm a I couldn't do what you're doing, Steve, with the podcasting. I don't think I can ask the right questions, but I definitely think that could be the area for another book, is bringing in more of the military side of things, and how someone like me becomes who I am, who it's like there's a standard and you're either meeting the standard or you're not. And as long as we've clearly defined what that standard is, we're not going to lower it. And that's very much what you're taught at the academy. It's very much what a lot of what you're taught in the military. So I think that could be tied to another book as well, for sure.
I love the journal idea. Obviously, I haven't seen it, but might be something there, even with edits, or even just, a section dedicated each chapter, maybe a snapshot. Great talking with you both today. Yeah, I'm a marketing guy too. So, Mark, nfbpublishing.com, that's where it begins if somebody wants to look at doing a book, right?
Yes, sir. And website's up, and there's a small form which starts the process.
Excellent. Thank you so much for today. Learned a lot, and humble is just a great word. I don't think we use it enough. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Thanks,
Mark. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, both of you, for being here today. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.